the key to understanding the movie Napoleon is really simple. And the message is crystal clear, actually. And it consists of only 2 sentences, very simple ones. First, greetings, this is Eugene the Philosopher, the greatest living philosopher after the unfortunate passing of Quentin Robert de Nameland, who has been the greatest living philosopher before me. So, a couple of days ago, I've watched the movie Napoleon, and this is the video about it. So, what's the point of this movie? Like I promise you, I will, if you have no patience, you might just click on the time bar to the where it says like the point of this movie or something, I will call it. But firstly, I'll give you some set of observations about it, like seemingly irrelevant, but once you get the point of this movie, which I will hopefully relay to you in literally 2 sentences, and you come back to the points I'm making at the beginning, you will get why they are as they are. And hence, if you get the point of this movie, I would say it's a solid 8 out of 10, maybe even 9 actually, because it conveys the message really greatly, even though I would claim that 99% of the reviewers, at least 100% of the reviewers I've seen, completely miss it. They just don't understand what's going on at all. They just don't get the message of the movie, like, again, at all. So, hence this video, okay? I had to make it. So, I liked the movie, actually. And, even though it's not about Napoleon, again, see you later, and some of the reviewers were completely correct about many of the details, but then again, they missed the main message, and hence, they just don't understand why this artistic voluntarism is there in the first place. Okay, so it's true, yeah, that they've misinterpreted the personality and charisma of Napoleon, right? It's true that there are no marshals of Napoleon in this movie, because why would there be any? It's true that no societal reforms are shown, like the Napoleonic Code rather, which France is actually using to this day, more than 200 years later, is not shown, etc., etc. And it's true that no organizing skills are shown, like, no political prowess is shown of Napoleon, no, national state foundation is shown. France is the first national state, so the nationalism actually appeared in France, you might claim. It's true that no good tactics or strategies shown, that like Napoleon was the pioneer in the use of artillery. I mean, the artillery obviously has existed before, but not to the degree that Napoleon has used it. Hence, one of his maxims, you never abandon your guns. Like, you might abandon people, you might abandon, food, horses, whatever, never abandon your guns, because the guns are the king, artillery is the king of the battlefield, etc. No logistical prowess is shown, the defeat in detail, how, when Napoleon fought Austrians in Italy, for example, like, Austrians had a bigger army, but Napoleon outmaneuvered them in such a way that he was always fighting an inferior force, so he defeated everyone, pretty much, all of them at least, all of the Austrians, right? Plus, well, it's my kind of personal thing. I've once read a piece of memoirs. I haven't read all of the memoirs of Napoleon, but just a little bit. So I've read his criticism of the so-called oblique order. I mean, I'm talking to all of my boys there, all of the fans of tactics and strategy. So when he said that oblique order doesn't exist, and it was such a relief for me that Napoleon actually agreed with me, because oblique order is such a stupid idea and such a retarded thing. But I digress. Let's return to the topic. So again, assorted things, assorted notes, if you wish, before we come back to the main course at the very end of this video, in fact. So just basically some of the impressions I got from watching it, like at face value, without knowing the main message, okay? So at face value, it kind of looks, that was my first impression, as an art house cinema piece, and I immediately remembered, which is actually very fitting, the Joker movie. So, I mean, obviously because Joaquin Phoenix is also starring in it, and it's kind of one of the biggest movies in the last 5 years, probably, the Joker, I mean. So the director of Joker actually said, I wanted to make an art house movie, but you can never, like, art house psychological piece, drama, you know, some sort of thing like that, but you will never get any money for doing this. So I had to drape my art house cinema piece into a superhero movie kind of clothes. So that's what he did, and he actually kind of succeeded, right? So I got this kind of the same impression when watching Napoleon. Another impression I got is that it looks more like a collection of short pieces, you know, like a collection of short films rather than a single narrative of any sort. Another impression I've got is that, you know, you have these like long temporal transitions, like a few years sometimes, and like you just move from one scene into the other, like from one short film into the other. And there's no, like, you know, straight plot line between them. That's kind of the most disappointing part, but then again, we'll return to the plot a bit later. What I gotta praise the movie for, objectively, is the visuals, and they're completely amazing, actually. Like, the picture is just fantastic, and I mean, it's Ridley Scott, so what else would you expect from him? Even though the palette, like whatever's the pronunciation, is a bit pale for my taste, but I mean, I guess I can see a justification for that, but the visuals in general are just fantastic. Like, you gotta watch it just for these, like, at the very least, like, it's just very pleasing for the eyes, you know. Okay, so yeah, another observation I've got, like, from while I was watching is they've kind of, like, you would expect, right? It's a biopic, sort of, a biographical movie. You would expect they would build a story around the main character, but in fact, they actually built it around another character, which is Josephine in this case. And it didn't even make sense. I mean, you might have thought, I mean, it would be kind of obvious, the idea is that, I mean, the idea of the movie is such that, well, you're with this woman and the luck is with you, and when the woman is not with you anymore, the luck leaves you. And in fact, they've made statements like this explicitly in the movie, like when she asks him to say, well, I'm nothing without you, and then later on, he writes to her apparently saying the same, like, when you left me, like, or rather, like, when we are not together anymore, like, my luck is not with me anymore as well, etc. But it also makes no sense because in the Siege of Toulon, he wasn't even with her. He didn't even met her by then. So what? Like, it's also not the main point of the movie, obviously. What's the main point of the movie? See below, okay? So yeah, and by the way, like, again, Joker is also built around another character, isn't it? It's around Batman, because, well, again, at least, I mean, the whole movie is kind of like, we're offered a mirror of the superhero trope, you know, sort of, and look at the opening shot of the Joker. Maybe I'll show it on the screen if I wouldn't forget. Like, literally a mirror, a Joker in front of a mirror, and the mirror is in front of a Batman's face, you know, with two lamps as his eyes, etc. And it's kind of amazing, actually. And I'm sure, like, 99% of you have missed it. But, well, that's why I have Eugene the Philosopher analyzing the movies for you, okay? So yeah, and I'm remembering another video, the movie with Phoenix as the main character is Inventing Abbots, which is another very interesting film where the main character, again, is played by Phoenix, but the whole movie is built around completely different characters. It's this family of abbots. That's why they are in the title, right? And, well, this particular movie at least deserves some view time due to having, you know, young Liv Tyler and Jennifer Connelly, and, you know, well, you wouldn't be disappointed, believe me. So, even in his own movie, that's kind of my point, Napoleon isn't even doing anything, you know? He's not the main character. Stuff just kind of happens to him. Stuff just happens around him. Again, why? Say below. Okay. And I believe it's kind of, again, reflecting upon this point, it's kind of a weird take in modern cinema, where characters, even the main characters, are just kind of decorations, really. They're not doing anything. It's this Indiana Jones effect, you know, following this proverbial trope from a statement made by, what was her name? Amy Farrah Fowler, right? From Big Bang Theory TV series, where she, like in the series, like in one of the episodes, they've watched Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, if that's the title. And she said after watching, like, wait, but it doesn't make sense. If Indiana Jones wasn't there, like, the movie would just proceed as it did. Like, they would have found the Ark, they would have died because of it, etc. And like, what was the point of Indiana? Like, what did he do in this movie in the first place? And the others are like, God damn, it's actually kind of correct. You know? So yeah, it's exactly this point that I'm making. That the main character isn't just there, you know, it's just like, wait, yo, what's happening, you know? Something's happening. So Rogue One is another relatively recent example from Star Wars universe, you know, this spin-off where the main character, this girl, she just kind of along for the ride, really. She doesn't do anything. So this modern cinema trope of main character not doing anything is definitely here in Napoleon again. See below why. So in the end, even figures like Napoleon are depicted as if they've had no say in what was happening, you know. Maybe, like, again, reflecting upon it a little bit in a philosophical sense, so maybe it's a sign of our own feeling of lack of agency, you know, like the younger generation, the millennials, the whatever, whatever comes after them, you know, we feel like we can't really change anything, so we're just along for the ride. But it's curious how even like old people like Scott have the same sentiment. But I mean, obviously they're artists, they feel the mood of the of the present times, so they can catch it, I believe. Again, watch my video, what was it? Pain Makes You a Better Artist, I think I called it, where I described this phenomenon in more detail. Okay, so jealousy might be another factor. That's another observation of mine, of what I mean by that. The jealousy of modern people, if you wish. Again, slightly connected to what I've just said. So, you know, again, watch my videos about stories being replaced by franchises and why that is the case currently. So, stories that cannot be franchised are left blank or erased. So what do I mean by jealousy of modern people? It's what I mean, like again, we have no say in it. We have no feeling that we are the heroes. We have the feeling that we are the viewers. We are the passers-by or something to that effect, to the life. And just like in Joker, again, I'm returning to this, like I believe, actually, like, again, the side note, I think there's much more analogs between Napoleon and Joker than people tend to believe. Okay, it's not just Phoenix playing the main character. So just like in Joker, we just follow the character. That was my frustration with Joker initially, before I actually kind of understood the main point of the movie, and before I learned what the director wanted to do with it. So my frustration was that we never get to know the main character. We just kind of follow him along, and like, that's it. Like, there's no, you know, humanity behind it. There's no drama, there's no conflict, there's no anything. We're just there, and something happens to him, and like, that's it. And like, you know, you don't feel this kinetics, the dynamics of what's happening. There's just, you feel like it's something external to you completely, right? Some deeply psychopathic or schizoid kind of feeling, kind of sensation rather. It's not even a feeling, right? And I have the same feeling about, the same sensation about Napoleon, I think. So the both movies are strikingly unemotional in this respect. Again, no humanity, I would say. And in general, as many of the critics, many of the reviewers have noted, the film actually lacks story. There is no story. It's not a good story at the very least. So, and I was thinking about it, and I imagined that like a thought experiment, which you might conduct if you have seen it. If you haven't, conduct it after you've seen it, because again, I recommend it. It's a good movie. Like, if you know the message, if you watch this video, you will know the message, and hopefully it would make you enjoy the movie much more, because you will have the keys which 99% of the viewers didn't have when they were watching it. So it's not a good story. Why? So my thought experiment was just try to, recite to somebody verbally or in written form what you have just seen. Just try to write down the story in your own words, the story of this movie, and it would make no sense. Like, it's complete garbage. Again, the only sense you can come up with is this Josephine plot line, but again, it falls apart immediately when you remember the Toulon case, etc., etc. So it just makes no sense. It's just a collection of events. Again, why was I having this feeling that I'm watching a collection of short films rather than a single story? Well, exactly because of that. Because there is no story, period. Not just a good story. So everything is just literal in this movie. Everything is very dry and empty, devoid of substance, just like in Joker, really. But then again, Joker is really an art house piece draped in the superhero clothes, so why wouldn't it have this feeling? I mean, it had a certain style that it wanted to convey, and Napoleon is supposedly something bigger, it's something epic, it's something blah blah blah. At least these were our expectations of it, okay? Again, if you didn't know the main message of the movie. Well, okay. Well, probably the biggest sin of Napoleon as a story, Napoleon the movie as a story, is that it doesn't have any conflict. There's literally no conflict. Again, because there is no conflict, the main hero, the main character doesn't do anything, because there's nothing to do if there's no conflict. Period. It's not even a theatrical play. It's not even a movie. It's not a story in the first place. It's a collection of pictures, a slideshow or a PowerPoint presentation. A really good one, by the way. That's why I recommend you to watch it. But it's not a story. Okay. So, and here I want to transition to the main part, to the point of the movie, actually. So only a few times the movie felt real. There was like a piece of, humanity, a piece of drama, a piece of personal involvement of the character, okay? And it wasn't with Josephine, by the way. It was only when Napoleon said he's doing it, like whatever he was doing, for France. Like, in these moments, it actually felt real. It actually felt real. I mean, okay, just a side note, Phoenix's play was incredible. It was really good. Like, there was some moments where it was like just so good, I didn't even believe he's an actor, Like, it's actually, well, I don't know how to phrase it. He's just incredibly good in this movie, okay? It's just that the movie itself, its point is to kind of make him not doing anything. And that's what he was doing. But sometimes he was kind of rebelling against it, and he was like very, very good. So yeah, there was this one episode I remember very clearly when he like literally breaks the glass. Like, okay, you just have to watch it. It's so good. Like, his play is incredible. But yeah, so I'm not blaming the actor, okay? I'm blaming the movie. I'm blaming the story. And I'm not even blaming it, actually, again. Wait a minute, we're getting there. So yeah, only when Napoleon said that he's doing it for France, it felt really genuine and it was really cool. Even when he was doing it hypocritically, like it was a lie, like he was just kind of pretending to do it for France. But there were a couple of times when you kind of feel genuine, like he actually thinks that he does it for France. And like, it actually made me think when I reflected upon it about one Austrian painter, the one who did a lot of things for Germany, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, it's kind of ironic. You know, France tried to unite Germany under France tried to unite Europe under Napoleon, and Germany tried to unite Europe under Austrian painter. Yeah, that's interesting. So, yeah, that's the only leeway that the Brits are giving to Napoleon, okay? The only thing they understand about Napoleon, the patriotism. So the Brits, the British, they're projecting their own patriotism towards Britain onto Napoleon, and that's the only thing they understand about Napoleon, like genuinely understand. That's why it's the only thing that feels genuine in this movie. Alright, and now you might say, well, what about the Brits? Why am I suddenly talking about the British? Well, you know, that's kind of, we're getting to the main point. So, you might say, well, okay, I might see your point, like the director is Ridley Scott, okay, he's British. And mind you, I'm not saying this because I hate Scott. In fact, watch my video about Blade Runner, where I say that Blade Runner is my favorite movie ever, directed by Ridley Scott, okay? So I'm not saying this to, you know, criticize Scott in any way. I'm actually thinking, like, I'm telling you, it's a great movie if you actually read the message properly that Scott is giving to you. Okay? So Scott did his job really well. It's just that, well, you might say it's irrelevant that Scott is British, and I'm answering to you, probably not. You know why? Well, because in my humble opinion, and I say it, I mean it, a British person is firstly British and only secondly a person. This is my opinion. You might disagree with it. You might agree with it. It's your choice. So I believe it is very important that this is a British movie. This specific movie, I mean, okay? So now we have finally come to the main point, the key to understanding Napoleon as a movie. So the key to understanding the movie Napoleon is really simple. And the message is crystal clear, actually. And it consists of only 2 sentences, very simple ones. First, the French are bad. And second, the great people do not exist. Okay? Now, how can they exist? Speaking from the, you know, from the point of view of a British person, how can great people exist? I mean, French people are bad is kind of obvious from British point of view, but great people, how can they exist? We don't have any, we, the British people. So if the French have any, or at least they're saying they do, they must be lying, okay? So, well, I'm of course, I mean, returning to my own point of view, it's obviously an exaggeration, blah, 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 blah. We're dealing with a piece of art. We're dealing with a piece of, like, exaggeration by default, right? The art, like, hyperbolizes certain things, diminishes other things to convey a message. And this movie actually conveys a message. And I actually just told you what kind of message it conveys. So, yeah. So, hence, this dullness and emptiness and uselessness of the main character in this movie. It's kind of a perfect storm, you know. The movie is about a great person. I'm not saying great about in terms of like morality, blah blah blah. I'm telling about the scale, the impact of a person, right? Like read the memoirs of Goethe, the greatest German poet, or Hegel, by some accounts greatest philosopher. Watch my video tier list of philosophers to learn that he probably wasn't, but at least his account is also very characteristic. His account of meeting Napoleon and Goethe's account of meeting Napoleon, where Goethe literally said like his life was a stride of a demigod or something to that effect. Like, and it's like one of the mildest things I'm quoting actually from Goethe. And like Goethe is like the greatest German who ever lived, you know, so he like his opinion kind of matters. So yeah, like the British are, you know, they have this open wound. They've been living like right through this narrow strait from like the greatest nation of Europe for like 300 to 400 years. And obviously they have this inferiority complex. And again, since they have never produced anyone even close to Napoleon in scale, they would be very skeptical, you know. So again, it's a perfect storm. We have a great person which Britain has never witnessed on their land, so they're skeptical about it, and it's a French person, secondly, right? So the Brits would be doubly squared skeptical. Skeptical squared. And this is the point of this movie. I'm skeptical squared, I'm sorry. I don't understand what I'm dealing with. I can't even walk close to it, like, I just don't have the eyes to see what I'm supposed to see. This is what this movie is telling you. I don't understand what I'm telling you about. Because I'm British and it's a French guy who is also a great person. And I have no eyes for any of those, for any of the two. This is the main point. Do you see? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see how everything I just told you about in the previous, 30 minutes? I'm looking at my clock. How it comes together now, how it makes sense, why there's no plot, why there's no point, why the character is useless, why none of his positive traits are demonstrated, why none of his actual, political impact is demonstrated, because he's not great. Britain doesn't see great people. They're all, under Big Brother, under the Ministry of Truth. So yeah, and the biggest thing, just appreciate it. You might think I'm crazy, but think about this, especially if you're European, or at least know a little bit about European culture. So there is a scene in this movie when Napoleon is captured after the Waterloo, when he lost, and right before he is exiled to his last destination, the St. Helena. So on HMS, aboard the British ship HMS Bellerophon, right? So he's sitting there eating, and the Duke of Wellington comes, and Napoleon, check it out, praises British cuisine. If it isn't the most vigorous demonstration of what I just said, I don't know what is. It's such a level of audacity and mockery, right? A British person making a movie about a French, demigod, essentially, and forcing this French demigod to praise British cuisine, which is complete dogshit garbage compared to French cuisine. Yo, I have no words. If you don't agree with me after that, I don't know what to tell you. The message is there, it's literally right in front of your eyes. The message that the movie conveys. Maybe you just disagree with it viscerally if you're British. I can understand that, but I think you would see the point, because it's so obvious. So yeah, long story short, it's the movie, Napoleon is a movie the Brits made about French people, and not even about a French people, but a French person, and arguably not even so much a French person. I mean, Napoleon was from Corse, right? From Corsica. So, what else? We might have talked about why the Brits have this inferiority complex towards the French, but one thing is that the French have made their successor, the next hegemon after the British Empire, right? The United States. France have created the United States, essentially, just as right now Britain have created the European Union, who's gonna be the successor of the United States. That was a friendly exchange by the Anglo-Saxons. Yeah. Hopefully, now, if you've watched the movie, it would make some sense to you. If you haven't watched the movie, I actually recommend watching it, especially since now you understand how to watch it, or at least what was the main point. And you wouldn't be disappointed. The movie is great. Again, given the points it was trying to make, it's actually kind of perfect. Thank you for watching. The eons are closing. If you wish to support me, please consider joining my Patreon. That is patreon.com/philosopher. See the link in the description. Or if you have a scientific theory of your own and you'd like my help in developing it, please join my alternative science coaching program, also available through Patreon.